Hi, thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. What we're going to do here is cover the Workspot design concepts. So this playbook is intended for MSPs, partners, and customers that want to deploy Workspot, anywhere from a simple lab environment to a full-blown enterprise solution. So what we'll do here is walk through the fundamental design concept and show you how it'll scale out. Next one we're going to look at, still a very basic design, still that core fundamental single box concept, only what we're doing here is we're leveraging cloud native identity services. So in this case, Entra ID, which was known as Azure Active Directory. So Workspot supports Azure Active Directory only type of deployments, meaning that there's no enterprise connector needed in this particular design because we're not talking to a legacy Active Directory anymore. We're using Azure Active Directory groups. And so the computer objects themselves are actually joining the Entra ID for the directory services. And also the users will be using the identity from Entra ID. So what happens here in this design, it's still a very simple design. Workspot control has a connection to the Azure tenant. It's just a simple enterprise application that consents principal least privilege access to look up user accounts and validate that that's the user. But when a user clicks on the Workspot icon, they get redirected to that login box from Microsoft. So they're not entering in credentials into a Workspot login. They're actually getting redirected to their own Microsoft login. And once that user identity is authenticated or validated, an OIDC token gets sent back to the client, and the token goes back up to the gateway in that particular region. And then from there, once they're validated in, they can log into their Azure Active Directory join resource. And so that's this concept here. And, again, it's not very different from the basic foundation. We're just pointing to a different identity provider and using a different directory service. So we have clients and customers looking at this type of option now, because as we get more cloud native and that matures out there, this provides the ability to leverage those cloud native services. And again, this is hyper scalable to multiple regions. This also works across multiple clouds. And like I stated earlier, what's nice about this is we use OIDC tokens instead of username and passwords for get through that main public entry point. And the gateways don't need to be domain joined. So from a security perspective, that makes it even nicer. And these gateways should be isolated in their own separate subnet within that box too, just to further isolation. And again, if the networking is required, we'll refer to those two box designs in a little bit. But the how-to, same place, just go to community.workspot.com. Now, uses for this are the same as the fundamental design. We're just using a different identity, and we're kind of simplifying things. We took out the Active Directory, the legacy Active Directory component. The enterprise connector is no longer needed, so it scales it back a little bit, even from an infrastructure standpoint. One thing to note here, though, it's supported on GCP, Azure, AWS EC2, and Azure. Currently, AWS Core doesn't support this, so we'd have to use like a hybrid mode for that. And same thing with vSphere and Nutanix. We would simply just use a hybrid type of mode. We'll cover that in a little bit later. One other thing to note, though, with respect to cloud apps, Microsoft only supports this on their cloud. So if we need cloud apps, and if we're on GCP and or EC2, what we would do there is have to use that hybrid mode where we bring in the legacy Active Directory back into the picture.